Hola! Welcome back to Grandma Goes Gringo. I'm Grandma, also known as Sharon, and this is video number 4. This video was originally going to be called The Move, and it was going to outline pretty much everything it took me to get where I am today, which is Cuenca, Ecuador. But a couple weeks before I was ready to leave the United States, things just started to happen. As my grandmother used to say, things went to hell in a handbag. So the new name of this video is called Murphy's Law. Because if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. First off, 2 weeks before I was ready to go, I received a call from a gentleman who was using the same pet transport company that I was. And he told me that he was concerned because they weren't returning his calls, and he was leaving in a few days. And I asked him how long it had been since he had spoken to them, and he said it had been 3 days since he'd been trying to reach them. So I said, okay, let me give it a shot. And I called him. And I called him again. And I called him again. And a couple days went by and he wasn't returning my call either. Then I received notification from the gentleman that his boss decided to call them and pretend that he was a prospective customer. And he had a different area code and everything than we did. So his boss called and left a message and said he was interested in using their services to get their dogs over to Ecuador. And that jerk called him back in like 2 minutes. So that was when we realized we had been scammed. And it all fell apart from that point on. And to add to it, before I go into more detail about what I had to do to finally get me and my dogs to Ecuador, the stress of everything that happened brought on shingles. And let me tell you, if you haven't had shingles yet and you haven't had the vaccine, get your ass out there and get the vaccine, because this sucks big time. It hurts like you would not believe. Anyway, enough about that. So now I've got a total change of plans. I start calling the airlines and trying to figure out how I'm going to get my dogs to Ecuador. And under the seat is not an option because Peeps is too tall. And I finally realized that I was probably going to have to send them in cargo, which I really didn't want to do. But desperate times call for desperate measures. And so, calling the airlines, I was informed that there were only 3 airports in all of the United States that were shipping dogs out in cargo at that time. Miami, Washington, D.C., and JFK in New York. So I contacted another pet transport company, and they were going to charge me about $7,700. Well, I already paid $28 to that other guy and lost that. My bank refused to refund the money. Anyway, so I rented a car, and I drove my dogs and I to Washington, D.C., where we got on a plane. I lost the money for the first ticket I bought for me because that was not refundable. And then I lost that $2,800 for the pet transport company that scammed me. And my credit card company kept flagging ticket purchases overseas as suspicious activity, so I almost didn't get a ticket at all. It was down to the wire. But I used another credit card and finally got there. I had everything I needed for the dogs except for their health certificate. And that's a fiasco. You have to have a USDA certified vet, and the vet examines your pets and fills out this huge, long online questionnaire and sends it in electronically to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And they used to do it where the certificate would come to me within 2 days by certified mail. Well, they changed that, but my vet didn't know that. So we're down to like 2 days before I have to go. I can't even buy their tickets without that certification number. And find out that no, now you go onto their website and you print out their certificate from their website. The doctor signs it. Boom, you're done. So that was just crazy. So we load up the car. I'm driving the dogs to Washington, D.C. And we had to spend one night in Ohio and then hit the road again the next day. Finally get to Copa Airlines Cargo, where I'm supposed to drop off the dogs. They're supposed to be inspected in their crates. There's like a million different things. You have to have live animal stickers in this side up, because obviously some people don't know which side goes up on a dog. Playing with my notes here. So finally get them there, and I thought I was going to have more time with them, and then they tell me at Cargo they're closing if I don't leave my dogs with them right now. And that was like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and my flight isn't until 3 o'clock the next morning. So I had to leave my dogs. Broke my heart. And went to the airport, sitting in the airport for like 7 hours waiting for the ticket counter to open up and everything so I can check my luggage and everything. And finally get there, and I was told that my dogs were going to come out with my luggage in the same roundabout, that thingy. That's a technical term. And all the luggage came out and no dogs. And the gentleman that was helping me said, no, the dogs come out over there. So we went over there. And these bulk items started coming through those little rubber thingies. They push things out. Another technical term. You guys are learning so much. I can't believe this. Nothing. No dogs. All of a sudden the head pokes out, and the gentleman asks him, no perros for Copa Airlines cargo? And they said no. And I just started to cry. I'm thinking, my dogs are gone. I have nobody knows where my dogs are. And I'm just a wreck. I'm exhausted and I'm hungry. And he suggested we go over and talk to these women over in Lost and Found. So I go over there, and they're asking me for paperwork, and I'm explaining that all the paperwork I have for the dogs is attached to the kennels. They had to tape it in clear envelopes, and then I showed her a piece of paper, and she said, oh, cargo. Oh yeah, no, they're not here at the airport. They're at a building a few blocks away from the airport. So I found my driver, Edwin, and fortunately he was very familiar with this process, as he has brought gringos into Ecuador in the past with their dogs. So we proceeded to go on a paperwork and money adventure that would make Chicago hoodlums look like freaking saints. We went to like 3 to 4, maybe 5 or 6 buildings, 8 to 10 times. You go to this one and they have you fill out this paperwork and you pay a fee. Then you take that paperwork and you take it back to this one and then you pay another fee and they give you more paperwork and it goes over to this building. And then they literally at one point were handing me blank pieces of paper and whispering how much cash I should put that inside that blank piece of paper and fold it over and slide it back to them. So I was greasing palms at this point. I didn't care. So 3.5 hours later, about $300 in fees and greasing of palms later, I finally see my dogs. And they're crying and they want me and they're telling me, oh no, you still have to go to one other building and then we'll take your dogs on a forklift and bring them to the dock. And Edwin had to unload his van with we had loaded all my luggage. He had to unload the van. Then I had to stand out on the sidewalk with my luggage, and he drove into the gated area with the security, and they put my dogs in his van. He drove out. I'm grabbing their leashes, and I'm trying to get them out of these little kennels and everything, and I quick run them to this section of grass that I had seen around the corner. And from the time that I dropped them off in Washington, D.C. to the time I got them out of their kennels, it was 21 hours. And I honestly don't think my dogs were ever let out of those kennels to go to the bathroom. They peed a lot. So anyway, so we're leaving Guayaquil to drive to Cuenca, and it's 3.5, 4 hours later than we had anticipated. So now we're starting to drive through the Cajas and the Andes. Cajas is a national park. The Andes are the mountains. And they're notorious there for landslides. So it's bad enough to drive through in the daytime, but at nighttime it's a little scary. So we're driving through. We finally get to my Airbnb, and it's nothing like the pictures. I mean, they must have used a wide-angle lens or something to make this seem like a really nice, spacious little apartment. But it was just this tiny little box. And the very next morning, I didn't even eat dinner. I just went to bed. I let the dogs go to the bathroom again, fed them, went to bed, got up in the morning. Jojo jumped off the bed onto the tile floor and sprained her leg. So I knew she didn't break it, so we were just gonna take it easy for the first couple days and let her heal, and she did. Then we're getting acclimated. Turns out that the Airbnb is across the street from a high school, and they've got a big open air auditorium where they have football, soccer games, sometimes as late as 11 o'clock at night. So that made it a little difficult to sleep. What else? Yeah, every time I opened up the cupboards in the kitchen, I had to cover my mouth with my sleeve or a rag or something because the smell of mold and mildew underneath the kitchen sink was just awful. Then I'm starting to get comfortable and everything, and went out to lunch with my friend Jonathan and his 2 daughters, and got food poisoning. Yeah, really sick for 8 days. Really, really sick. And then Paro hit. Paro is a strike. The indigenous people went on strike. And they were shutting down roads so people couldn't get propane, which they used to heat the water for showers. So I was taking ice cold showers. I bitch about the Airbnb, but I'm gonna give a big shout out to the landlord. I had sent him a text and I said, I think I'm sick and my friend thinks it's what was it? Some kind of a bacterial infection or something. So he had told me what drugs to get. So you'd be surprised what drugs you can get over the counter here. And I had sent a text to my landlord asking her if there were any pharmacies in the area that delivered, because I was just sick as a dog. I could barely leave the apartment. I only left it to just go across the street to the tienda and see if there was anything there I could eat, or else to take the dogs out to go to the bathroom. Well, this kind man, 15 minutes later, there's a knock at my door and he's standing there and he bought me the pills and brought them to me. Well, a few days later, he knocked at my door again and he said, "Are you any better?" And I could barely even stand at this point. I hadn't eaten in days. I was dehydrated. And the pills were